Hey guys, Steve here. Been a while since I put out something on YouTube, so I knew I gotta get back into the rhythm of making some content here, and want to start out with something just that came to mind the other day when I just started thinking about how the Japanese sets have been structured that in the way that they've been released so far in this mega evolution era, right? So we started off with Mega Brave and Mega Symphonia, right? So we had that dual set, and we become pretty accustomed to that. Back in Scarlet and Violet, um, you had Black Bolt, White Flare. Um, the split up of Destined Rivals was Glory of Team Rocket and Heatwave Arena, and so on and so forth, right? And that's kind of the typical for the normal sets. You always had the one-offs with the high class sets like T Fest and um, things like V Star Universe, that sort of thing. Um, where it was just the one set at a time, right? So primarily focused on the one. And so what we've seen since the beginning of the Mega era has been kind of a straying away from that structure. We started out right off with the Mega Brave, Mega Symphonia, and then went right into Inferno X, right? Highly popular set because of the main chase being the Mega Charizard, right? So it makes kind of sense from that standpoint. You would think, okay, maybe they're just going to release this one by itself because what would be the point of releasing dual sets where one set has the big Mega Charizard and then the other set, would have to compete with that. So it makes sense from the standpoint you're almost setting yourself up to compete against yourself in a way, right? So you're gonna manufacture this one set that has the biggest chase in a long time with the Mega Charizard, and then you'll have another set trying to compete for any type of attention. Now, if we look back at Mega Brave and Mega Symphonia, um, there was, in my opinion, a clear split in terms of popularity for the two. Mega Brave, much more popular. You had the Mega Lucario SAR, you had the Mega Lucario Gold, um, a lot of other more dynamic SARs, bigger chases from that standpoint. And then it was a very different kind of style of card and artwork in the Mega Symphonia. So while it did potentially play to a broad range, right, when you combine the two, a broad range of collectors and um, to me, right, you're competing with one another, and the clear winner was Mega Brave in that case. And so, why would you want to create a situation where you're competing against yourself? Essentially, you're putting in putting aside capacity in the manufacturing for both sets and that sort of thing. So instead of doing that, you create one set that has a massive chase and you can focus directly on that and you just pump out as much of that product, focus on that, and that way you have more flexibility with your manufacturing. So that makes sense to me, right? When you followed it up with the Charizard set in that case. Um, but then after that, right, regular set, the next regular set was Nihil Zero or Munikusu or Nihil Zero, however you pronounce it, right? Um, Not the most popular in general, but that one was also standalone. So that was kind of interesting. I was like, okay, well, and then we had Ninja Spinner after that, and that's just been the sole set, right? So we've kind of gotten away from the dual set and then the Abyss Eye set being announced. Seems it's going to be just the one set. So I think it helped consolidate the focus of collectors, um, or just, fans, whoever's purchasing the product, whether they're playing it right in Japan, versus to most of the people here in the U.S. that buy foreign language product. Typically, you're just collecting it for the artwork. Um, Not a huge um, portion of the community actually using foreign language cards to play the actual TCG. So it makes sense from that standpoint. Plus the kind of the marketing, right? They only have to focus on marketing one particular set, as opposed to, again, dividing their attention or dividing their resources to two different sets. So it makes sense from that standpoint. But I also can't help wonder what else might have caused this. Maybe over the course of the last couple of years, they've done some analysis. Like I said, there's dual sets being released simultaneously that, um, one set typically performs at a much lower level. So I can even think back to like Wild Force and Cyber Judge. There was a big dichotomy there. You had the Crimson Haze and Mask of Change, and the big difference there was it was deemed the big chase being the Greninja, so that set took off more. There was higher demand for that. So right, you get one, you get a bigger chase card kind of identified um, by the fandom, and then that kind of drives the price up, the demand up for that particular set, and then the other set just kind of sits there, right? And it's harder to move. Um, then they're left with a lot of products sitting around, that kind of thing. And they've divided, their manufacturing resources, their capacity between the two. When in reality, if you had focused all of it just on the one set with a bigger chase, you probably could have sold a lot more units, could have kept the price down maybe a little bit on secondary market, something like that, right? Be a little bit more price friendly. Now, obviously, that's not what Pokemon's really concerned with, because they're selling it or through their distribution, typically at a stable rate, right? To those who end up distributing it to resellers or whoever. So, I mean, that's part of my take. My other thing is I can't help but wonder if they're doing that, maybe they actually are splitting their manufacturing capacity, because it doesn't seem like the amount of product, from my standpoint, has really, or the accessibility of really large volume of product has changed. Um, the demand for foreign language product, or international demand through resale, has greatly increased. And then on top of that, we've been seeing some kind of um, strange, ascension of prices on boxes across the board, right? We had Inferno X has just skyrocketed, Glory Team Rocket skyrocketed, pretty much everything went up. Even stuff I was seeing, um, like Stellar Miracle, that had been pretty affordable and plenty available, all of a sudden that went up like 25%. And you can't help but wonder like what's going on with that. Now that's a separate issue. But back to what I was saying is, I think maybe this is pure speculation. Maybe they are dividing some of their printing capacity and devoting a lot of it to, or not necessarily a lot of it, but a good portion of it through a longer duration to print stuff for the 30th anniversary set. Now it's purely speculative. As a collector, as well as a business owner, I hope that's the case. I hope it is super accessible. I hope they just print it to the absolute ground so that it's very affordable and everybody can get their hands on it. Like, to me, right, as being somebody who resells a foreign language product, um, I have no problem. If the product is so readily available that the price is lower, that just means I can buy more of it, right? I can buy more of it. I can get more of it to my customers, and we just keep churning through it. That, I mean, honestly, that's the most ideal thing. Um, because it does tend to get more difficult when the prices are so much higher, and I'm sitting here holding on to product a little bit longer because it's more expensive, right? When you have more expensive product for an individual unit, it tends to take a little bit longer to move those units. So I much rather it be um, cheaper price and readily accessible for everybody. And then I can, selfishly, I'll be able to rip a lot of it and see the product and have fun with it from that perspective. So, I mean, I'd love to hear what some of you guys are thinking. Maybe some of you are more aware of particularly the international manufacturing process and why they might have gone away from the dual sets, and they're just focusing on individually released um, regular sets. I'll say that because as opposed to something like Mega Dream and Terrestrial Festival, where it's typical for a high class set to just be the individual one, you don't have um, two high class sets being actively pushed in the market. So let me know what you guys think about that. Do you guys think or agree that it might be something to do with the 30th anniversary and them printing more product so that they have way more supply on hand for releasing that? I think they have to recognize, Pokemon has to recognize, obviously, there's not only an increased demand across the board of Pokemon, whatever, whatever language it is, there's an international increase in demand. So people in the US demanding Japanese, Chinese, Korean product, all of that. My understanding is that even Korean product is going to spike in pricing. It's already trended up, but now my understanding is there's like a big jump or something, like a coordinated jump in pricing going on. Now, I don't know if that's substantiated. I've only seen that through social media, so time will tell with that. But, I hope they put out a ton of 30th anniversary product, whether it be foreign language, English, what have you. I think that's best for the company. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any shortage of being able to move it. Um, there's a ton of hype in the Pokemon space in general right now, and it being the 30th anniversary as well. Every new set um, is still high demand. Even stuff. I know Perfect Order necessarily wasn't the um, most anticipated set. I think it missed the mark for a lot of collectors from a big chase standpoint. Again, it goes away. It aligns with Pokemon's strategy and aligning the card games with like the new video game that they released, the Z to A and all that. But um, I think it kind of lacked a big fan favorite chase, right? So that ultimately, um, I think, was the reason for why it's not going crazy on secondary market like Ascended Heroes. Um, so it seems to be pretty readily available and out on the shelves. I don't know if that's just. I imagine that's just because the demand in general, people aren't going in and scooping up everything they can of it at once. You get more of the maybe casual collectors or more people that are picking up stuff for their kids and that kind of thing and buying that, but they're not going crazy, right? They're not worried about the secondary market and reselling and all that. Or scalping, whichever you prefer. To me, the whole scalping argument is if you're taking stuff off the shelf primarily for the intent to sell on a secondary market, that's scalping. You're pulling stuff away from the general community or access to the general public of a product in order to make it more scarce and therefore make it more valuable on the secondary market and then take advantage of it. That is scalping to me, personally. But again, that's a conversation for another time. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Hopefully, the 30th anniversary is coming up here soon, I believe, in the fall for that set. And I hope they just print it into oblivion and everybody can get their hands on some product there. Um, if you guys aren't already aware, we do simultaneous streaming. We do live streaming on TikTok, where you can purchase products in the TikTok shop for a live rip. We can also send sealed there, but also we have a live stream here on YT as well. And for that, you don't have to go into TikTok shop and buy. You can go right to our website, scrowrips.com. And again, we can rip live as long as we're on the live there, or send sealed. So you can place an order anytime and we'll send it out sealed to you. Appreciate all your guys' support. Make sure you're following us here. I really appreciate you guys. If you subscribe, hit the like button if you're enjoying some of the content, or drop a comment. Let me know some things that maybe you'd like to hear discussed about the Pokemon market, or about starting my business or anything like that. And, work on getting some of that content up there. So appreciate you guys. Have a good one.